this is the agenda. What is CRISC? CRISC areas of focus, IT risk and related aspects. About me and about the CRISC. So just I will hold to those specific mention of my agenda. Area of focus, we will quickly see into 4 domains of this series. What series certification all about? So overall agenda journey for this 1 hour session, that about the trainer, what is CRISC, 4 domain area of CRISC. So identification, assessment, treatment, response, and risk and control monitoring, reporting, all those things. Specifically, we would have a focus a little bit on how CRISC exams are designed and their typical requirements, who need CRISC in today's market era, and their respective benefits, how to approach ISACA CRISC questions. My experience, we may have a couple of questions as well, just as to showcase how you can expect what type of questions and all. So about trainer, about me, as I introduced myself, I'm Mandar Sahasrabuddhe. I've been working in this field for last around 18 plus, to be specific, 19 plus by now, in heterogeneous industry sectors that I have worked in oil and gas, investment banking, definitely IT services, manufacturing, fast moving good related aspects like FMCG that we can consider. I hold various certifications, as Shagun rightly mentioned. So I'm certified CRISC, CGIT, CDPSE, that is specifically for data protection, CISA, from where my actual journey started, CISM, ISO 27001, and so on. Experience, my overall is around information security, IT risk management, SOX audits. I will call more, it is a regulatory requirement, GRC projects implementation as well as business as usual, and further audit engagement across various countries and all. Specifically towards training, I have around more than 200 plus internal and external training on information security topics, specifically for various certifications. I'm frequent speaker on ISACA chapters as well. So in nutshell, this is about me, and let us, we will explore further. And just one note before moving ahead, as you know, recording of this webinar is underway, and you can see that later on our YouTube channel and also through email as well. You would get course attendance certificate and CPE certificate. You need to attain for that a full session and complete the feedback form at the end of this course. Feedback link is given, that also may be provided through a chat box later. And to register for your further upcoming CRISC sessions, please write sales@infosectrain.com. So these are few pointers that I wanted to let you know. Now we are at the real question for this session. What is CRISC? CRISC is a certification offered, it is an exam offered by ISACA, the esteemed organization, leader organization in information security, information system audit, information system governance, all these fields. This is one of the pathfinder organization who actually created awareness about this field 1990s time, and further it is adding to its excellence, I would say. This particular certification is recognized across the globe by ISO 17024, which is a body, standard body across the world, ANSI as well, NSI. So this is well regarded, well appreciated certification across the globe. So what is in what demonstration is expected once we say that we are a CRISC professional? What does mean by CRISC? It is a certified in risk and information system control. So there are two parts to it. One is a risk management, enterprise risk management, and other is information system control. So this exam talks about how risk needs to be managed, specifically IT risks or information risks. One of the option is risk mitigation or risk reduction, and for that purpose, how these information system controls to be understood, to be designed, to be implemented, and to be operated effectively. So all this discussion we can consider throughout this course contents. This series addresses the need of professionals who understand both technology as well as how to implement and align effective risk management and all. Whenever the word management comes, then all the planning, controlling, checking at our progress and all those things would come together, and we have a discussion, we have certain statements. I'm coming to it. There are two type of statements on exam topics. One is a task statement and other is a knowledge statement. So once we became a risk practitioner, ISACA, once we became a certified risk and information system control professional, in a way we became a risk practitioner. So what we need to do, right from identification of risk or analysis of risk, what exactly we need to do, what kind of duties we need to discharge, what kind of responsibilities that we need to play, all those are considered through task statements. What exactly actions we have to take, and to support these actions, whatever pointers we should be aware of, not only aware of, but we should be have enough knowledge about them, and all that is supported by knowledge statements on each and every exam topic. So when we see the CRM or the further detailed course, definitely all the course is anchored around these task and knowledge statements. Moving ahead, these are four exam focus areas. You can have four anti-clockwise circle, starting one, IT risk identification. So identification of a risk, that is a one domain, a first domain. It represents around 27% of a weightage of overall exam content. So this phase results in listing and documenting various IT risks, those we would be identifying. Then it moves to next, whatever risks that we have identified, how to assess them. So how to evaluate them, how to analyze them. In this phase, risks are evaluated along with several dimensions: external forces, internal forces, various stakeholders, and so on. It represents around 28% of overall exam weightage. Next logical step, okay, we have identified, we have assessed these risks, then what to do with them? Then we have to treat, that is a third domain, risk treatment or response. So this phase requires management to decide appropriate ways to respond to risk. 23% of a weightage to this domain. And further, a last domain is a risk control monitoring and reporting. So this is towards regular monitoring parameters, key risk indicators, their layered reports, because goal cascades are getting from top to bottom equally. Measurement and reporting also should coming from bottom to top at various layers. It represents around 22% of overall weightage, monitor and report. And whatever feedback, definitely it will start with the next phase. Again, identify, assess, treat or respond, and monitor and report. So this is actually the life cycle of risk, I would call, and all this life cycle is been considered by ISACA as a C-risk exam area focus. Now, we have been talking about risk, IT risk or information risk and all those things. But what exactly these risks? We know enterprise risk. For any organization or any business enterprise, let it be a very small or very giant, it doesn't matter. But there are two constraints. Businesses cannot enjoy unlimited, infinite resources, as well they cannot enjoy zero risk environment. So if we are in the business, if we have set certain objectives to be achieved, let it be strategic, tactical, operational, whatever kind of objectives, But to achieve them, we have to optimize our resources as well as we have to optimize our risks as well. And in this area, these risks nowadays are not only a business or business process risks. Major contribution in enterprise risk management is coming from I and T related risk. This particular diagram I have taken from ISACA publication itself. What is I and T? So information and technology related risks, right? So in enterprise risk, we face strategic risk, environmental risk, market risks, credit risks, operational risks, compliance risk, and so on. Those risks are not in silos, because for any strategy formulation, various tools we use for data gathering, data analysis, and all. For environmental technological systems are also used. Definitely market risk nowadays, social media, and various other electronic means are also there. Credit risk we can consider is more from financial perspective, but definitely it will have IT as a backbone. We all know operational risk, day-to-day operations and all, and compliance risk, regulatory or statutory requirements, and if we fail to comply them, we are attracting either penalties, that is a sustainability question mark on the business, and other is a performance. For example, market is more from a performance risk. What is a common in all these 786, and all these are definitely illustrative examples, definitely it is not a exhaustive list, but ISACA has categorized IT related risk in 4 buckets, that is IT benefit or value enablement risk, IT program project delivery risk, that whether if important highly critical programs those are getting delayed, then they pose a risk while achieving my strategic objectives. IT operations and service delivery risk, cyber and information security risk, which is utmost important nowadays. There is a separate slot in board of director discussion only to discuss cyber threats or information security threats. So all in one, if we consider these buckets, definitely they will help us to identify, assess, mitigate or respond, and then further monitor and report this IT related risk. So all this CRISC exam is around this approach only. We'll consider the first focus area or the domain, that is IT risk identification. What definitely in a session of 1 hour or so, you may find it's a cursory overview that what is there, what we are going to understand, learn, understand about knowledge statements and understand about the task statements and overall area. So this risk identification, IT risk identification process typically is revolving around asset based risk. So we have to identify assets, we will identify respective threats, we'll identify existing controls, we'll identify existing vulnerabilities, will identify consequences. So what will happen if identified threats exploiting identified vulnerability, and what would be the consequences in circumstances of current control environment or current control structure? What would be the impact? And then there would be a risk estimation process. All these steps are considered in risk identification phase of overall process. How to identify assets, how to identify threats? Are there various models? Are there various approaches? Are there various methodologies to identification of all these components or the pillars of this process? Yes, very much there. And we can have a detailed deep dive during our courses. So there are various methods to understand the risks or all these identification components: historical, inductive, systematic. We can run through various interviews right from board of director to the last leaf of organization, normal operator or so. Risk scenarios from top to down or bottom up approaches, how we would build these scenarios. So for example, scenario is like I'm not delivering projects in time. Overall 30% of my project delivery is going beyond my deadlines. Then what is there in it that I have to consider for? That is a one risk scenario. And for that purpose, we may go top to bottom or bottom up approaches to understand them and so on. So we would come up with holding someone responsible throughout this risk management, who is a data owner, asset owners, who are responsible, accountable, consulted, or just informed at times, understanding various stakeholders, influencers, having a key power centers within organization, how to deal with them. Definitely, because some people aspect also would be there. It is not a mere technical, let it be it's IT risk, but it is not mere technological. Element of human resources would also be there. So from that angle, how we can manage those risks and so on. Tools which will run through seamlessly from first phase, that is IT risk identification, to final IT risk reporting and measurement. The risk register, it is proposed and developed by ISACA, that at all these four phases, how this risk register works as a thread. Components, there are various components in this risk register. That is a deep study, definitely with risk appetite and tolerance, because risk management starts with risk appetite identification and tolerance levels, threshold levels. So how do we come up with risk appetite? Whose responsibility is that? What exactly risk appetite means? Whether it is quantitative, qualitative, how these risk appetite statements are maintained, how they guide us while selecting risk responses, all those things we would consider. Definitely risk culture, as I have been mentioning, that this is a people, human resource angle is also there. So how the culture is, how people take their day-to-day decisions. Because see, organization is nothing but the story of decisions taken. Take any kind of organization, let it be a big giant organization like Tata or Reliance, or today Facebook or so, or any small enterprise who are at our normal local level as well. That story of organization is nothing but the story how decisions were taken and how those decisions were maintained. And for that purpose, whether our culture is risk averse, whether we are ignorant towards the risk, if we are much risk taking but in calculated way, or someone any that meaningful decisions that we would consider, and overall risk awareness across the organization that we would see. This is IT risk identification. Second is IT risk assessment. Now, identified risk, we need to, in structured, methodical manner, we have to assess them. So there would be various risk impact factors, external or internal, organization structure, flat or hierarchical, more red tape culture is there or not, how overall directives are coming from top to bottom. There is a one we can say framework, COSO, COSO. They always talk about tone at the top. So how direct is how overall organization behaves as their senior and executive management behaves, and not only document or not only talk, but walk the talk, that kind of a stuff. So based on that, how it impacts, whether if risk culture is more risk aware, then our control environment would be more tightened, more stringent in a way, but still it would be a flexible. So how controls are designed or operating, control categories, there are many control categories. There are corrective controls, preventive controls, detective controls, compensating controls, and so on. All these controls we need there to assess, because during the control identification phase, one of that part of a risk identification, we have identified certain controls. Then we have to analyze them as well, that how this control is functioning. This is kind of a as is control analysis. Then further risk analysis methods. The last part in earlier way that we have identified, That is part of our specific parts like estimating risk. So for that purpose, whether it is a quantitative, qualitative, semi-quantitative methods, we would come up with risk maps, risk heat maps, and so on. So risk assessment methods, brainstorming, cause effect analysis, have a workshop, Delphi method is there to gather everybody in the same room. All the stakeholders would be there, then come up with brainstorming sessions, come up with risk identified areas and so on. Checklists as well would be there. Information sources of assessing current control risk postures, like we have many audits, internal, external. We have internal or external vulnerability assessment or PT reports, penetration testing reports. We have various control self-assessments. We have various internal audit, let it be a quality audit or information security audit or any such audit with a special purpose as well. So all the information that we are always gathering, and that is a perfect source to identify control posture or risk posture. So that we would have a deep dive in that. Gap analysis, current state versus desired state, and what we need to do to reach towards the desired state from current state. What strategies we have to take, what kind of analysis of the data we need to do from sources that we have already gathered, and so on. Risk assessment reports, finally, how to create that report. Here, risk register would be a great help. Nowadays, all these risk registers are automated. So whatever kind of a report from risk assessment perspective we need to draw, we can see that through the tools and all. And a pillar of information security, because one of the important aspect of IT risk is information security, cyber security. So confidentiality, integrity, availability, authenticity, non-repudiation, all those parts would definitely seen in detail during assessment. Then segregation of duties, various job rotation, mandatory block leaves or mandatory vacations, that is a control. That is not a privilege, by the way. IEEE model, authentication, authorization, various authentication factor, two-factor, three-factor authentication. All these are nothing but the mechanisms to assess our current stature of overall risk. That is nothing but the risk assessment part. Moving next, this one diagram covers overall IT risk treatment and response. You can see that after risk analysis and we have identified a risk map, there are two questions: whether risk is, which is analyzed by the way this time, whether it is stepping over risk appetite identified. If it is stepping over to identified risk appetite, then we have to respond to that risk. If it is not stepping over the risk appetite, then merely we can say we accept that risk. Otherwise, we have four risk options, risk response options: avoid, mitigate, share or transfer, and accept. So these four responses that we have to consider. Avoid means avoiding that business activity. Mitigate means implement certain controls that we can bring down that risk rating within our risk acceptance levels. Share or transfer, further we can just buy insurance, paying certain premium that we can share or that transfer that risk, that if it gets materialized, we need not to pay all the money or we need not to take all the hit. So someone is, and based on what these responses we have to take, there are parameters: efficiency of response, exposures, response implementation capability. If we know that I have to implement the control, and if I'm not capable of doing that technologically, manpower wise, other resources constraints would be there, budget and many other things. So based on this study as well, we have to consider what best I can do to manage my risk. And once we select the risk response, we have to prioritize that response. Mitigation is also there, but which control we need to go with first, based on its urgency, priority, our overall benefit and cost analysis, which will take front seat, which will take back seat, and so on. So this is nothing but a typical management function. Prioritize, reprioritize, have a close eye on that, and then we will come up with a final risk action plan, which we have prioritized those responses, and then we execute that action plan. It becomes a project, by the way. The approach would be to run these action plans as a project. All these details definitely we will see. Okay. Then final control, monitoring and reporting. As we have seen risk culture, I specifically mentioned this diagram over here because we have all the parameters like KPI. Here we have KRI, key risk indicators. We have risk action plans, we have close eye on that. We have SIM kind of a tools, security incident or event management tools. Definitely effectiveness, efficiency, that we will understand. Waste value stream perspective we can consider, how we can avoid that, how effectiveness of control is adding to control my overall risk posture, and all things are there. We will do VAPT, third party assurance, we run through various maturity model and so on. But ideally what we are going to see that how my overall risk culture is improving, whether my behavior towards taking risk is marginally, slowly, iteratively changing or not, whether my culture is learning or blaming culture, are we having any improvement around it, behavior towards overall policy compliance. So whether I regard the compliance from the sustainability perspective of the business, or I am just okay, the culture is like okay, whatever is happen, I will pay the penalties and I will move on, because I know whatever the profits I will make, those are definitely huge than the penalty I will pay. This also can be a possible. I'm mentioning these two extremes, compliance and non-compliance. Generally all the organization are spotted somewhere in between. Nothing is black, nothing is a white, all we have various shades of gray, because in practical manner is not binary, either one or zero. So that we will consider how we can closely monitor how our improvement and all from the IT risk perspective. So these are four identified exam focus areas. Now we'll come to understand how C-risk exam or design and requirements. Actually, 4 hours of exam, 150 questions, and there are no any breaks or something like that. If you want to take breaks, it is not added to your exam time further. So 4 hours is a final. All the 150 questions are multiple choice questions. Four choices would be given, and we have to choose one best answer. Pass or fail notification would be displayed soon after the exam, as it is an online exam, and after 10 business days you would get official scorecard. And so for applying the certification, one important part is this is a scaled score, so you won't get marks out of 150, but they have scaled that score, that all 150 questions, if you answered correctly, maximum marks you would get 800, and to pass this exam at least you should get 450 marks or more to require to pass. So it does mean that not all questions carry same weightage. There would be scenarios, there would be various questions related to one scenarios and so on. Few are direct questions to test our concept clarity and all. So accordingly, weightage to each question may differ. From certification norm getting perspective, generally we require 5 years of relevant risk management and experience. For that purpose, first we have to pass that exam, and it would need the endorsement from existing C-risk professionals or your immediate reporting manager. That also would do. Definitely there are few waivers, that if you hold any other certificate from ISACA, there would be certain waivers If you have overall experience more than 5 years or so, you would get certain waiver and so on. So that details are provided on ISACA site. Okay, requirements for remote or proctored exam or home. You should have a good laptop, desktop, good internet connection with at least 512 kbps recommended. Webcam is required because if it is a proctored exam, and overall 575 USD for ISACA members and USD 760 for non-members. So this is good and advisable. Being a professional for so many years, I passed my ISACA CISA exam, and after that I'm actually a continuous member of the ISACA. Ultimate source of various knowledge you can have access to if you become a ISACA member. So that is one aspect, and you would get certain discounts as well if you become a member on various exams, not only series, any other exams as well that you wish to go for. Okay, then important question: who needs CRISC and what are the benefits? As per my experience, I know that I have been control professional, I have been compliance professional, I have been project, not actually a mere project, but overall implementation cycle I was witnessed, and I was even a risk professional as well. Now, even for various internal job changes as well in risk, because generally what happens in organization, there are three layers of a defense. One LOD, second LOD, and first LOD is nothing but operations management professionals who actually work, application manager, infrastructure manager, and so on, because they operate certain controls, they assess certain controls on them themselves. The second LOD is risk professionals, so risk champions, your risk organization, generally we call it as a overall headed by CRO, that is a chief risk officer. Many times this designation may differ, but the responsibilities under the office of the risk management. So it's a ladder. So risk consultants would be there, risk managers would be there, certain expertise from the risk management perspective also there. So that is the second layer. And third layer of defense is nothing but the internal audit. And at all these levels, so let it be you are at any level of this defense, having certification of a CRISC is one of the prime requirement becoming across the organizations, right? So even though we can see this is a data from 2010, but there is not much addition like a double or something like that in last 10 years. It does mean that this CRISC exam is having high regards, and that's my personal experience. I've been working and I've traveled across 15 countries, and believe me, these ISACA certifications, C-risk certification, let it be investment banking, let it be any industry domain, but IT is there, and wherever IT is there, IT risk management has to be there, because compliance pressures are mounting nowadays. Compliance from GDPR, for example, and for that GDPR impact analysis, we have to have a solid foundation of a series frameworks within organization. So from that aspect, you would be knowing that all the corporates listed on stock market, let it be NYSE, NASDAQ, India, Japan, or China, they have to produce risk management reports public every year when they file their returns or when they declare their results, along with their statements, financial statements like profit and loss or balance sheet and all. They have to award a report based on their corporate governance, and risk management is one important pillar of a corporate governance. So that has immense requirement, and it is accelerating these requirements. So you can find definitely serious job opportunities in most job roles. Strategist, analyst, manager, expertise, subject matter expertise, and so on. So if you are looking at that, definitely this series is for you. I have come up with a couple of questions how you can see these questions. I know this is too early, but just to have a view. For example, the construct of a question is like this. Which of the following provides the best view of a risk management? Now, such words like best, first, preferred, etc. Definitely, there won't be any questions which will talk about least, not. There won't be much negative questions, even negative marking as well. So if you choose a wrong answer, your marks are not going to cut anywhere from your actual tally. So that is one thing. And then there would be 4 answers, right? So an interdisciplinary team and third party risk assessment service provider, C is the enterprise IT department, and D is the enterprise internal compliance department. So this is typical question. Now, based on our knowledge statements and task statements and all the course content that we would review with the help of whatever materials that we have, then we have to fix one. Definitely, as per any multiple choice questions, there would be one distractor, clear distractor. There would be 2 close contenders to become a correct answer, and we have to select out of that. So this is overall sample question. Let us see one more just for benefit of now here. See, most is a keyword, and generally those are printed in the same bold and highlighted manner. So which of the following should be most concerned to the risk practitioner? So failure to notify the public of an intrusion, failure to notify the police, that is enforcement bodies, of an attempted intrusion, failure to internally report successful attack, or failure to examine access rights periodically. So failure to internally report successful attack would be the answer to this question because of various rules. That is a risk practitioner. I mentioned that once we become certified, we could be called as a risk practitioner. So we have to think that something has already happened and we are not able to report it, means highest level of a risk. Always we have to attack these questions, that where lies the risk most. That can be a one thumb rule. Definitely thumb rule, it is not the 100% holy grail, definitely. So such kind of a questions you can expect. See here, word primarily, that is also they are provided. So there would be certain keywords in this that we have to consider. Accordingly, analyze all our knowledge statements that we have went through, our practical experience as well. One more important thumb rule: always think idealistic. Definitely at practical level we might have taken different decisions, different selection of course of action, but while answering these questions from the ISACA, we have to stick to the idealistic situation. In ideal state, what I would select, that hat always we have to wear. So about this sample things, the next slide is exactly what I was talking about. So look out for the keywords such as primarily, best, most, least, etc. Don't apply the process what do you know, but think from ISACA way of risk management. Idealistic theoretical view. What you do in your job may not be always the right option for the question. Out of 4, 2 options can be easily eliminated, like a distractor and all. For the last 2, it's a tough fight, definitely, and we have to confirm with final answers. A lot of time to complete the exam, so easy. Don't rush much. So by this typical area of exam and how exam would be, what exactly the content would get tested, what exactly is IT and related risks. This is all about the universe of a CRISC exam. Friends, by this I'm coming to the end of my presentation. Many thanks for your patient listening, by the way. This session is over. So many thanks for patient listening. Thank you very much. Take care of yourself.